John Fredericks, America's Godzilla of Truth. He's popular and proficient in picking politics with prophetic precision. And now Jay Fred's picking sports. Are y'all ready for this? All across the airwaves and streams of the John Fredericks Media Network, John, Jack, and Nate, three guys that are pretty wise when it comes to picking winners. Football, basketball, baseball, soccer, golf, UFC battles, you name it. When the game is on your mind and money's on the line, Godzilla Wins is your guide to picking winners. Before you make that play, hear what J. Fred has to say. Godzilla Wins on the John Fredericks Media Network.
Oh yeah, for entertainment purposes only.
Good morning and welcome to the Godzilla Wins Saturday Pick Show. I am your host, Jack Fredericks, alongside my father, the Godzilla of Truth, John Fredericks, and our contributing editors to GodzillaWins.com, Dan Angel and Nate Perry, with us as always, and excited to be here to talk, a little baseball. First up, this first hour, 9 to 10 Eastern time, because, hey, we got a new show time here, 9 to 11 Eastern time. We did 8 to 10 for almost 2 years. Moved into the 9 to 11 spot, so you can all get a little bit of extra sleep. 9 to 11 Eastern time. Catch us on. You can catch us on Getter. You can get us on any of the John Fredericks Radio Network apps. You can catch us on podcasts, wherever you subscribe for podcasts after the show. We'll have that up as well. But we're 9 to 11 Eastern time now, so get your second hour of sleep there. This first hour, 9 to 10, we're talking MLB. We're at about the halfway mark, all-star game coming through. So we'll do a whole bunch of Major League Baseball talk. We'll be joined by Vince Mayoko. He's been on the show a couple times. We like having him on here to talk a little baseball. We'll talk to him in about 15 minutes. They're going to be joined by Mitch Rogers and Jay Delsing on at 10 o'clock. Do some U.S. Men's soccer because we got Berhalter getting fired. Klopp says he doesn't want to be the coach. Whole bunch of stuff going on there. We're going to talk to Dan there because this is a watershed moment for Dan's U.S. men's fandom here. He's been waiting for this for a while, so we'll give him an opportunity there to talk about it. Then we'll do some Wimbledon. Got both the men's and women's finals here on Sunday, as well as the Copa America final. I think that's on Sunday as well, so we'll talk a little bit about that. And then the Scottish Open with Jay Delsing. We're going to get ready for the Open Championship. A lot of interesting golfers out there, Nate, that I want to talk about. Sung J M looks to be peaking at the right time, maybe for the Open. I don't know. I mean, he's been kind of around. Of course, you got Abear and all the Europeans who are playing well, and Rory's been playing well as well. So I wouldn't be shocked if Rory had a really good Open next week. He's having a good Scottish Open too. So we'll talk about all that this week. But before we do that, we have to talk to you about how Godzilla Wind and all of its subsidiaries are for entertainment purposes only. So here comes the gambling disclaimer. Gambling problem, please call 1-800-GAMBLER. That's 1-426-2537 in Colorado, Illinois, Louisiana, Maryland, Michigan, Indiana, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Tennessee, Virginia, West Virginia, and Wyoming. 800-327-5050. Visit gamblinghelpline-ma.org in Massachusetts. Call 877-G-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY to 467-369 in New York. Call 1-800-NEXT-STEP in Arizona, 1-800-522-4700 Kansas and New Hampshire, 887-889-7777 or visit ccpg.org in Connecticut. 100-BETS-OFF in Iowa. Visit opgr.org in Oregon. If you're a fan of sports analysis, information, sports betting, all that stuff, go to GodzillaWins.com, which is for entertainment purposes only, but we got your sports information and analysis for you. Got all sorts of stuff on there. And if you go to our daily picks page, you'll see all of our daily staff picks for the weekend, especially John Fredericks' picks. He gets those up with extreme regularity, and he's got all of his stuff memorialized. So you can see how well he's been doing this year. So check out that daily picks as well. Okay, guys, we are ready for the show here. Glad everybody is with us. Like I said, we're going to be joined by Vince in about 15 minutes, but I just want to start off, as always, with our weekly obsession, what we're thinking about this week. Nate, let's start with you.
I mean, I might be stealing it from you, but Remember like a month ago, it was like one short month ago, maybe a month and a half ago, when we were talking about Caitlin Clark, and we were like, it's going to be tougher to adjust with everyone, banging on her all the time, and she's getting fouled all the time, and she's missing shots, she's having bad games. And now all she's done is become the only player in WNBA history to score over 90 points and have over 60 assists in a 5-game stretch. She has figured out the WNBA. It didn't take long, but she figured it out. And she is the player that we thought she would be. Like all that sort of like chatter after a few bad shooting nights or getting smothered, being guarded, like that's all gone now. Like she's dishing assists like crazy when she does get, swarmed, and she's making shots when she's open. And, that's kind of what we expected to happen, but I think it's happening faster than we expected it to happen.
Yeah, and a lot of that has to do with the scheduling for the WNBA. The Fever had to play some of the best teams in the WNBA very early on in that schedule, and they're now playing teams like the Mystics, who they lost to this week, or the Mercury, who they've beaten twice already. The Mercury are pretty good, and so I think they're like the Fever is 7th in the standings. The team is playing as a bit more of a cohesive unit as well. The thing early on about the Fever, like when they couldn't figure out how to win early on in those games, I just couldn't understand how they weren't getting Aaliyah Boston involved. I mean, Aaliyah Boston was the Rookie of the Year last year. She was, college player of the year 2 years before that, first overall draft pick, all that stuff. And it just seemed early on that they couldn't really get Aaliyah Boston involved in the playmaking, especially on offense. And to be honest with you, Clark, her success at Iowa had to do with Monica Sanano and Hannah Stolke, who were the two bigs there. They didn't really play with someone as big as Boston. Boston's like 6'5", but she, Clark likes to be able to find her bigs and cash in on those easy buckets down by the post. And so I think we're seeing a little bit more of that. She's like second in the league in assists per game. I think Alyssa Thomas is first, and what's her name, Angel Reese, as well as has had a really incredible stretch, 15 double doubles in a row. She leads the whole WNBA in rebounds. She's a little like rebounds per game. She's a little bit like a 0.02 above Asia Wilson, who of course is the best player in the WNBA. So both her and Rakia Jackson in LA has been making a big difference as well. So good rookie class, and I think we've seen a lot of that from Caitlin Clark this year. They start to adjust, and I think they'll continue to win. So we'll see some more of that. I'll stick with basketball. I'll do my weekly obsession, then we'll get to Dad and Dan here. Mine has to do with the men's, not necessarily the USA men's, although I did roll my eyes when Kawhi went to 2 practices and then was like, no, I'm hurt. Never mind. I can't play. Classic Kawhi. I don't even want to get into that because it's just like, man, I mean, come on. But okay, whatever. So you're injured and you want to
just sat there quietly on the sidelines for 2 practices and then it was like, never mind, forget it.
Yeah, just like, oh, okay, never mind. I'll go back to LA and focus on my Clippers season. Come on, whatever, dude. But this Bronny James stuff I feel so bad for Bronny James in some ways, because he's the only 2nd-round pick I've ever seen get anywhere near this attention. Of course, he was always going to get that. But, 2nd-round picks usually don't pan out. They're usually not good players in the 2nd round. Every once in a while you get one, but that's kind of notorious. If you don't get a first top 15 or a lottery pick in the NBA, a lot of times those guys are role players. If anything, a lot of times they don't make the rosters. They spend time in the G League, etc. And Bronny, he's had a tough start to summer league. I mean, offensively, he's been awful, just awful. I don't have his stats pulled up, but he sat his 2nd game because of some knee tightness. His 1st game, he was awful. He scored 8 points in his most latest game. He was 0 for 8 at the 3-point line. People say he can play defense. I haven't watched enough Lakers Summer League basketball. I just don't have the energy to be watching Lakers Summer League basketball other than clips. And so I don't know if he's some sort of defensive specialist that can play that role on the professional stage. I don't really have an opinion on that, but he's been awful on offense. And I kind of on the one hand, I feel bad for him because he shouldn't be getting this much attention every time he has a game, and every time he misses a shot, it's just he's the butt of every joke on social media. But then at the same time, he did sign like a $4 million contract or $5 million contract for 4 years, which that never happens for second round picks. I mean, they have guaranteed contracts. Maybe they're not always guaranteed in summer league. They have to work really hard to make the roster. And of course, because Bronny James is a marketable asset, not because he's a good basketball player, although he might be a good basketball player, but because he's a marketable asset, that means that he's able to cash in quickly because the Lakers can run commercials with him and his dad. They can put his picture up on his poster up on the thing or whatever. And I don't know if it's as much like nepotism, like LeBron James leaned on the Lakers to give him this guaranteed contract, but it is because he is marketable, not because he has proven himself a good basketball player worth $5 million. But at the same time, basketball money, they hand out money all the time in that sport, so you can't get too mad at them. Okay, so that's enough basketball. I think, Dan, we'll go to you, then we'll go to Dad. What are you obsessing about?
Wait. I think I comment on what you said. The socialist is now the capitalist. The transformation you made here is incredible. That you just outlined the whole capitalist economy, capitalism, yet you're Bernie. You're a capitalist. Very good growth there. Very impressive. Good job.
John, every American sport is socialist except for soccer. Soccer is the only.
But think of what he said. I mean, he's absolutely right. The Bronny contract has very little to do with Bronny's skills and all to do with the marketability of the Lakers to make money and for them to make money because of the combo with his father. So, I mean, that's very insightful, son. I mean, that because a lot of people are looking at this contract like they were signing, somebody that was disconnected. The marketing money that these people are going to make is incredible. It's like when the Dodgers signed to Tony and everybody was up and, said, well, biggest contract ever, whatever, X hundreds of millions. And they're going to make that up in 5 seasons in just sponsorships and marketability. So, very insightful.
They signed Ohtani because of his arm and his bat more than his marketability.
Well, yeah, but I mean, they overpaid for him
talent
because they could get the money back in the sales and advertising, in the promotion of the Dodgers.
They
could recoup a lot of that money back. So, and they've done that. The Dodgers have done a masterful job at marketing him, and I mean, he's a cash cow for them as far as money coming in to offset some of that contract. So I think the same thing is going to happen here with LeBron, and I think Jack nailed it. People are looking at this contract like, okay, why is he getting this? Now you got the summer issue. They're not looking at putting the package together.
Well, I don't know. I mean, he'll spend a lot of time in the G League this year. I don't even know how much he'll be on the court, garbage time with LeBron, so that LeBron can I don't know, feed him a layup or something, and they can all high five. I mean, whatever. Fine. I mean, okay, fine. That's fine. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. The Lakers can do whatever they want with their money. It doesn't really matter to me. I just think it's interesting to think about that contract. I mean, if you look at the other contracts in around where he was drafted, I mean, they're not even guaranteed money usually. It's usually just a couple weeks to prove yourself. We'll give you basically a tryout conduct. So anyway, Dan, go ahead and give your weekly obsession.
Okay, so my weekly obsession is, are the Orlando Pride actually going to complete an undefeated season? Because we've talked so much about the WNBA. We haven't touched on the NWSL, the Women's Soccer League. And the Orlando Pride have gone through 16 matches without a loss. They're about to take a break for the Olympics because the Olympics actually matter for women's soccer. But they just beat Kansas City, who is the second place team on the road. I think that might be the current first loss in their new stadium. They've already gone to Washington and won. So their toughest opponents the rest of the way have to come to Orlando. So they might actually pull this off.
Have you been able to get down there to Orlando to watch them?
No, I haven't. It's about 2.5 hours each way, and I've just been so busy with other projects that I haven't been able to get down there yet.
Got to get you down there. I wonder if there's a line on a futures line on if they stay undefeated the entire year. Pretty interesting. Pretty interesting development there. We'll have to keep tabs on the Orlando Pride and their their win streak here. It's pretty incredible. But yeah, the women's sports are interesting. A lot of them right now, the WNBA and women's soccer, because of the Olympics. Everybody's about to take a break until September. And then, hey, listen, if you're listening to the Godzilla Wins Picks show every week, we're going to be talking a ton of Olympics coming up. Here should be a lot of fun. We got a lot of Olympics to talk to. I saw some sort of list of all the Olympics you could, bet on in states where that's legal, and the list was pretty long, so it should be pretty fun. I was thinking that this is probably the first year where the Olympics has occurred where sports gambling is probably at its most popular. I mean, 2020. It's always been popular, but I guess legal and popular. I mean, 2024 has to be, I guess, as high as we ever seen.
I mean, in 2012, we didn't even have lines for most Olympic events in Nevada.
Oh, really?
That was like pre everything. Right. And then 2016, it kind of started happening. And then 2020, it was like, okay, yeah, like this is real. And now, yeah, it's exploded.
Yeah. So it should be kind of interesting to talk about how that changes just the engagement with the sport. Overall. Okay, Dad, go ahead with your weekly obsession. Then we'll bring in Vince and talk a little baseball.
Well, I got 3 of them, so let's get started. Welcome our new audience. Hope you guys like the new time, 9 to 11. I'm loving it. Get an extra hour of sleep, and the other good thing is I got my Astros cup here. I got my Astros hat. Life is good when you're only one game out. Going in 2 days before the All-Star break. Let's put us in a good mood. So I got 3 quick ones. Number 1, MLB draft coming up on Sunday night. Now, I can't stand Manfred, and I can't stand all the suits that work in New York at the MLB. I hate them all. If I was an owner, I'd try to vote them all out all the time. Manfred's the worst. But I tell you one thing he did that's really smart is he put this MLB draft on the Sunday night before the All-Star festivities start. So it's going to be on national TV again, and it's getting traction. And I remember 7, 8, 10, 20, 30 years ago, except for the first pick, right? You never really covered it. Nobody heard about it. And now it's a big deal. It's on TV, and it's great to see the kids all there. If you're following a player like us, JJ Weatherholt on West Virginia, you get to see him there with his dad, who you know, and his mom, who you know. So is he going to go 1? Is he going to go 5? So that's exciting. So that's going to be his legacy that has a check mark by it. Everything else, the guy absolutely sucks. Second thing, whoa, Mets. How come we're not talking about the Mets? 2 months ago, the Mets were the worst. Remember they had that pitcher that I don't know what happened to him. He got bombed or something. He threw his mitt in the stands, and he said, "I play for the worst team and the worst team ever, and I suck and they suck." Remember, and they cut him. I can't even think of his name. Mets were in last place. They were going nowhere. Right now. They're tied in the wild card. And Mets going to get in the playoffs. Now they're talking about trading Alonso. That's insane. So let's give some love to the Mets because they were left for dead. Now look at them. Third thing, we're getting where pitchers are throwing at hitters again. Okay? It's been happening all this season. Never seen anything like it. Obviously, I watch all the Astro games. Our guys are getting hit. Alvarez, Altuve, they're getting hit. Got a brawl last night at in the Orioles game.
Yankees
yards, right? The Orioles game where he hit another guy, throws at him, hits him in the head. But the thing is this is how the game has changed now. Like pitchers can't retaliate, so there's no fear. So if I hit somebody, right? I know that if that pitcher retaliates, he's going to get thrown out immediately. And the manager doesn't want that, especially if it's early in the game and it's a starter. So there's no retaliation. So the first guy hit, no fear. That's really changed the game. And I'm concerned about a lot of injuries now happening. Guys are throwing, and you can't tell me, they're throwing hard, the ball gets away. No, the number of hit batsmen is way up. And you look at some of these aren't curveballs in the dirt that hit somebody in the foot. I mean, these are balls that are hitting guys in the hands, in the arms, right? Up in the head area. MLB is going to have to do something. Start throwing guys out if that umpire decides that he was thrown at that guy because there's no more retaliation. That's my rant.
Riveting. You only care about the hit batsman thing because Jordan got hit last weekend, and then so did Altuve, and now Altuve's hurt. So now all of a sudden
we got our two best
Now
guys
it's all
hit.
about players.
Our two successful
Yeah.
games. No, but now you have the Yankees Orioles game, right? But if you go back, there's a
Are you worried about the health of the Yankees?
No, I'm pissed off that they hit Altuve and Alvarez, and we can't do anything about it.
Of course, of course.
Mr. MLB safety commissioner. Now that Altuve's hand is hurt and they're one game out of the playoffs, now he's like, this is out of control.
And then Minnesota hit Alvarez the next day. You can't look. They were trying to take our two best guys out of the game, and Espada is afraid to retaliate. Next inning, I don't care who the hell was up or who was pitching. You're getting some chin music, baby. You're going to get knocked down on your ass. Instead, let's try, we don't want to get thrown out. We want to play by the rules. No, this is not the way baseball's played. You knock my guy down, I knock your guy down. This is the Ryan Express way, right? Give him a bow tie. Give him some chin music. Knock him on his butt. Let's see what happens the next time. Got to be able to retaliate.
So in order to stop players from throwing at batters, we need to throw at more batters.
Yeah, I don't get that logic.
It's called mutual destruction strategy, right? I'm not going to throw this guy do this. The next inning, one of my guys is going to get plunked. So I'm not going to do that. So if there's no fear of retaliation, you don't care.
You're just like
the counterpoint to that. We brought up the Olympics. Like in the Olympic, like hockey is my sport, and in the regular season in the NHL, yeah, there's plenty of fighting. In the Olympics, nobody fights. Like there's no fear of retaliation because fighting just doesn't freaking happen. Like it's completely unnecessary. You don't need that fear of retaliation. Like,
yeah, you just want like a Bay of Pigs strategy here for MLB. Like, like some sort of Cold War, like I throw at your guy, you throw up mine.
Get one guy on every roster with an arm that throws about 105 and just let it rip.
I mean, you have to have that fear. This is the way the game has been played.
Yeah, fear.
For 100 years, right? Yeah. If you throw at me, okay. If I throw at a guy, right, to try to get him out of the game or whatever I'm doing, if I do that, I know the next inning, one of those guys on my bench, don't know who, could be the first up, could be the inning after that. One of those 9 guys is going to get knocked on his butt, and maybe he's out for a week, maybe it breaks his hand. I'm not going to chance that, so I can get Altuve out for two days, and I'll tell you something else. Screw the Twins, they suck. Screw Correa, screw all of them.
How's that diet going for you?
It's going great.
Sounds like you're in a really solid mental place right now.
Do I look thinner or what? Nate,
yeah,
what do you think?
Your face looks thinner. Yeah, you seem a little on edge mentally. So, maybe hydrate or something.
Do you think guys are? Do you have like a war on razors? Right? Are you guys like boycotting razors? Like
looks
me
like
and Dan
you bought them all, John.
Yeah, really. You can't afford them because you took all the
cornered the market for your head and face.
Listen, I don't know if Dad's getting any sleep these days, but for those of you who appreciate a good night's sleep, I need you to go to healthycell.com, do a little REM sleep here. This is one of the best products Healthy Cell really has. REM sleep what it does is it helps you get in that third REM area of sleep so that you really get a deep sleep instead of waking up every hour or 2 hours or just kind of being a light sleeper and waking up groggy. Those days where maybe you can only get 6 or 7 hours and you're hitting snooze on the alarm all the time. And even when you get up, you pump yourself full of caffeine. Nothing wrong with a little Beard Vet coffee, but you pump yourself full of caffeine. And by about 1 o'clock, you're exhausted. You got to take a nap. You're dragging. Well, not with REM sleep. This is why we love Healthy Cells REM sleep, because what it can do to you is it can help you get in that really deep sleep. And it'll give you the third REM. It'll give you the 6, 7, 8 hours. And the better sleep you get, the better you will feel the next day. So what I need everybody to do, go to healthycell.com. That's healthycell.com. Choose the REM sleep. Take it. It'll knock you right out, get you in that third REM, and you'll be ready to go. You will not be disappointed in that product. We love HealthyCell.com. Cannot recommend them anymore. So HealthyCell.com, REM Sleep. Promo code Godzilla. Almost forgot the promo code. Don't know what's wrong with me this morning. I'm definitely not on a diet, so my brain functioning should be fine. HealthyCell.com, promo code Godzilla gets you 20% off. All right, we're going to bring in Vince Mayoko here.
Just a quick bit of math. Based on the hit by pitches this season in MLB, they're currently on pace for 2,097 league-wide, which would be a slight drop from last season.
Okay.
So hit by pitches are actually down this year.
Thank you, Dan.
It doesn't matter that they're down. It matters where the ball's going. A lot of these balls last year, guys.
All right, Dad. Hey, listen,
John, let's be real. Let's be real. It only matters. It only matters to you if it's going into the Astros batting box.
You should work for the Biden administration economy department. You just make up your own. You just get a fact and you strew it in, right? I'm telling you, guys are getting hit and guys are getting knocked out of games.
John, it's Saturday. We're not doing politics.
Yeah, Dad. I'm just a metaphor. Dad, hey, Dad, stop talking. I'm gonna need you to take a breath. I don't know what you've been doing for the first 25 minutes of this show, but you're sounding a little unhinged. Don't just take a breath, calm down. Nobody's talking about the Biden administration. All Dan did was fact check your erroneous claim that hit by pitches are up because Jose Altuve got hit in the hand and now you're mad. Hit by pitches are down. That's why we have Dan. That's why we have Dan, because he fact checks these things.
Ombudsman.
Because he has journalistic standards. Now we know that the hit by pitches are actually going down. We're going to bring in Vince Mayoko to talk about some stuff that we scheduled to talk about this week. I need you to chill out. I don't know what's going on today. Just chill out. Just take a breath and chill out. All right. Vince, happy to have you. Hope you're as awake as my father is for some reason.
Yeah. My question to John is, how many cups of Beard Vet coffee has he had this morning?
Too many. Maybe the Vince, maybe the later start time is really working against us here. Maybe that first hour we need him to get a little awake. Now he's ready to go at 9 o'clock here, 8 o'clock Eastern. I think he's on Eastern time. But yeah, and hey, shout out to Beard Vet. We'll talk about them in a little bit.
Beard Vet and Healthy Cell are working too well.
Yeah, way too well. All right, so I want to talk a little baseball. Glad to have Vince here to do some baseball. We're going to do just some MLB halfway points. That's kind of where I want to start. Biggest surprises and biggest letdowns, I guess, just team-wise or player-wise. Vince, we'll start with you. Let's just do biggest surprises from this point on in the MLB season, about halfway mark. What's the biggest surprise, your biggest takeaway this season?
If you're looking from a team standpoint, let's look in the AL Central. Who has the number one overall draft pick tomorrow? The Cleveland Guardians. They only won 76 games last year, and already they're over 20 games over 500. And the other one is the Kansas City Royals. Now, the Royals might not make the playoffs, but remember, they lost 106 games last year. And now they are, I believe, 8-9 games over 500. So those are the two, to me, the biggest positive surprises. And they happen to happen both in the same division, the AL Central.
Yeah, the Cleveland Guardians have been a huge surprise lately. And we've been talking a lot about how well they've been playing. Just an incredible story so far. And they got that number one draft pick, which, as Vince mentioned, we're going to talk about a little bit later. All right, Dan, what's a big surprise you got going on right now?
The Phillies actually getting a bullpen. I mean, Philadelphia's biggest weakness for years had been that they just couldn't get over the finish line in the 8th and 9th inning. And now the bullpen is no longer a big weakness for the Phils, and they're just dominating the NL East as a result. Like John mentioned the Mets and their surge, the Mets are still 12 and a half games behind the Phillies.
Yeah, the Phillies have been really incredible this season to watch. And what's funny, Dan, and you may be able to bring some numbers into this while Nate and Dad are talking, but early on, it was the same old story with the Phillies. So I'm not really sure when they turned that bullpen around, because the first, little bit of the season, first month or whatever, it was the same thing. And we talked about that a lot when we did some baseball early on. Hey, get the Phillies early, the first 5 innings, and those were hitting. And then all of a sudden they've kind of turned things around. That's been a really competitive division. And I think Atlanta right now is in second. But like Dan said, I mean, they're 12 and a half games up on Atlanta. And the Braves, of course, were supposed to be, I think, everybody's World Series pick. Like a lot of people's, they were getting everybody back. They're healthy. They're the Atlanta Braves. They're kingpin. And all of a sudden now they're in second place, trailing the Phillies by 1,000. So, we'll see how that shakes out. Nate, biggest surprise so far this MLB season?
Yeah, I mean, my biggest surprise is kind of echoing Dan. I mean, because the Phillies, like when they started the season, we were kind of thinking Dodgers, Braves in the NL, and then and the Phillies were kind of like the third choice just because they hadn't done a lot to shake up their roster. They'd gotten close the last couple of seasons, but they hadn't quite gotten over the hump. And they didn't really do much other than just kind of re-sign some players they had. And so it just kind of looked like, okay, Philly is just comfortable just kind of being where they're at. And instead, they've gotten a lot better. I mean, the run differential leads the league, plus 119 in run differential. They're 8.5 games up on the Braves in the NL East at this exact moment. And it looks like pretty much, barring some sort of disaster, they're going to win the NL East. They're going to, thrash the Braves. And they've been doing all of it with like some pretty key injuries to hitters, at various times throughout the season. Bryce Harper's been down for periods. Schwarber's been down for periods. So, like all of that. And still they're sort of right there, in large part due to the bullpen and just pitching. But yeah, I mean, like credit to them for just staying patient and not, blowing the whole thing up or really trying to chase something crazy and just sort of staying on track. And now, they look like the best team in baseball.
Another World Series run for them would make it 3 World Series appearances in 4 years. If I'm not mistaken, maybe 3 in 5 years. I can't remember when they played the Astros.
They lost to the Astros in 2022.
Yeah. Then they were back last year, right? So if
they missed. They lost in the NLCS era.
Oh, right, yeah, the Diamondbacks. I always forget about
the Diamondbacks.
That's right. I always forget about the Diamondbacks.
It'd be their third straight trip to the LCS, but they've only had 1 pennant in that.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Well, we'll see. Could be 2. Hard to get back to the World Series. Dad, what's your biggest surprise here?
Well, the biggest surprise in baseball for the team that is underperforming once again is the Blue Jays. I mean, here's a team that 3-4 years ago people thought here they got Bichette, they got at the time, they had Craven Biggio that looked good. They had a great closer. They had great starting pitching. They had one of the top draft picks out of West Virginia. So Toronto really looked like, hey, this is going to be a team in the future. It's going to be the new dynasty. Here they are this season, languishing in last place, 8.5 games out of the wild card, 8-9 teams ahead of them. They're sellers. I don't know what they're going to do. On paper, you look at this team on paper, they look really, really good, but then they just don't win. And so I think that they've got to be one of the biggest disappointments this season, how they've collapsed. One of the biggest upsides, the Brew Crew, right? Remember, Counsell left Milwaukee because he thought they were going into a rebuild. He didn't want to go through it again. So he leaves the Brewers. Look, they're in first place over the Cardinals by 5 games. They're going to win that division. So he gets out of there. Says, I don't really want to deal with a rebuild. They're supposed to be in a rebuild. And here they are in first place. They got pitching, they got hitting, they play defense. And the guy that I picked to be the MVP is having a great season. I think I got big odds on that, like 1,001 or something. Oh, he's having a great season. We'll see what happens there. But Milwaukee, got to be one of the biggest positive surprises going in to the halfway point of the All-Star break.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. Brewers have been a big surprise, and Dad kind of teased our next little talking point here, which is the biggest letdowns. Again, we'll just kind of go around. We'll start with Vince and move around that way. This would be just some teams that have not lived up to some of the expectations. We could take this in a lot of different directions. Like Dad said, the Blue Jays have been in that camp now for a couple years, although they were in the playoff talk, before. I mean, this year's been a letdown, but it's not like every year since we started talking about the Blue Jays being potentially playoff contenders. Like they've been awful. They've been okay. But Vince, for Major League Baseball, what's kind of your biggest letdown here?
Well, I think you could look at the state of Florida, Tampa Bay and Miami. Tampa was a 99-win team last year, and they're nowhere in the picture right now. And the Miami Marlins was a team that was kind of like John had talked about with the Blue Jays, a team that was on the upward trending. And shoot, they're going to lose 100 games this year. But of all the disappointments, I think the defending, and John will love this one, the defending World Series champion, the Texas Rangers.
Yes.
I think they're the biggest disappointment when all's said and done. Let's be honest, the AL West is not a strong division. And when you're under 500 in the AL West, that's not good.
Yeah, Dan, what's wrong with the Rangers? Like, for casual fans who aren't fans of the Rangers, like why have they tanked so quickly?
Oh boy, I mean it's tough to really pinpoint it. I mean, Texas last year just seemed to have everything going their way, and then this year, like, they've had some flashes. I mean, they did just have a 5-game winning streak before this Astros series started, but things just have not gone according to plan. Like, they don't hit very well. There's just not really much offense on this roster. Most of these hitters looking at their lineup, there's four guys who are over 250. I mean, that's pretty weak. There's not only 3 guys who even have double-digit home runs, so there's not much power there. And the pitching has had to be superhuman and just hasn't been. So, I mean, there's still some talent there. Like, they haven't completely fallen off the face of the earth, but it's clear that this is just not a championship roster this year.
Yeah, Dad, let's stay on the Rangers because, I mean, you hate the Rangers. So, and I know you watch them closely because you hate them so much. Tell us what's gone wrong here.
You know, the whole Bochy magic, it just wore off. I mean, you look at like I saw the game last night. Obviously, they're playing the Astros, so I'm watching the whole game. And, you know, guys on base are hitting into double plays. You know, they made a key error in the 6th inning, a 2 outs. There's a bouncer to third, and I guess it was who's ever playing third, sails it over first. Should have been out of the inning. It was a 3-2 game. Altuve gets up, whoever the starter was, hangs a changeup. 1-1 pitch, he hangs a changeup. Altuve hits it in the seat, 6-3. So it's just things like that. Easy ground ball to third base, 2 outs, you're out of the inning, and then Altuve's leading it off instead of getting out with 2 guys on and 2 outs, and then he plugs a 3-run homer in the Crawford boxes. It just things like that. You know, when a team's not going good, it's like when the Astros weren't going good at the beginning of the season. I mean, everything that could go wrong went wrong. That's just the way baseball is. You just start playing that way, and you got to figure out how to get out of it. And their starting pitching hasn't been there. And then, you know, I guess they're got a couple guys on the injured list. I guess Scherzer maybe come back, but they just don't look as sharp as they did when they made that World Series run last year. That team was hitting on all cylinders. I mean, no question about it. And I think they seem to have slowed down a little bit, but they have a good roster. And I think, you know, if as an Astro fan, I don't think they're done. I mean, I'm concerned about them in the second half. I'm concerned about Seattle in the second half. I mean, these are 2 good. Rangers will come back, but right now they're just not playing.
Yeah, that's right. That's true. And as Vince said, I mean, when you're in the AL West and you suck, you got some problems. So they can always turn around and still win the division. That division is pretty weak, even though we got some people who like the Astros on this show. We can be a little objective about how it's not been the strongest division this year. Dan, what's your biggest letdown?
I really expected more from the Tigers. Like, I thought that they were going to take a next step toward becoming a strong contender in the AL Central, and it just hasn't happened. I mean, the Guardians, as Vince pointed out, have just been dominant. John called the Royals very early, and the Twins were better than I expected. I mean, I still thought that Detroit would be up there, like not quite on playoff level yet, but still pushing above 500, maybe making a run at the wild card. And it just hasn't happened. Like, this team is still at least another year away.
Detroit fans have been waiting for this team to stop being 1 or 2 years away for a while now. And I think, Dan, that you captured well the feelings of almost everyone in Detroit who sort of feels like, hey, this like when is it just going to start to click? Because we keep being told we're 1 or 2 years away, and we're 1 or 2 years away. And they have a good team. They have great pitching, some really good young pitching that's exciting, but they just can't seem to put it together in a division that does seem wide open. So I think you're right there.
Yeah, I mean, if I was capturing the feelings of everyone in Detroit, it would be, well, yeah, the Tigers, some are a disappointment, but we got the Lions coming.
That's true. That's true.
That's pretty much how that city is thinking right now. They are like all in on the Lions. And
as well they should be, and we're going to talk about that as soon as we get to the NFL. The Lions will be a big talking point all season. All right, Nate, what's your letdown?
I mean, I think the biggest letdown has to be the Marlins. I mean, just because they were a playoff team last year, obviously. They weren't like great, but the pitching was pretty good. And they seem to just have committed to like pitching is what we do. And in doing that, they landed 6 pitchers on the IL. And then their on-base percentage is last in the NL, last in slugging, last in home runs, last in walks, last in runs scored. They're also, last in defensive runs saved. They are first in errors and next to last in runs allowed. So it's like they went all in on pitching and just kind of ignored like the hitting deficiencies they had last year that, would have made them a more balanced team. And all that happened was like all their pitchers got injured and they're still just terrible at hitting, just like worse than last year. And I guess like that has to be a disappointment because they didn't really do much in the offseason after that, making the playoffs. They just sort of sat there and were like, this is good enough. And it clearly is not.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely true for that team. And that's a team that always seems to have problems when it comes to trying to sustain any level of success, regardless of the decisions that they make in the front office. It just doesn't ever seem to materialize in more than 1 or 2 years of success. We're going to get into the NFL draft. I'm sorry, not the NFL draft, the MLB draft in a minute. But I got to tell everybody who's listening about one of my new favorite products, and this is Native Path's Antarctic Krill Oil. Here we go, baby. See that? I know my screen's not mirrored, but here's our Antarctic Krill Oil. Now, listen, have you read about the possible side effects from taking ibuprofen? I have. To top it all off, ibuprofen doesn't even get to the main cause of your pain and swelling problems. It's only temporary pain relief, and it's only masking the true problem, which is, as we all know, inflammation. Got to get rid of some of that inflammation. So right now, I need you, if you're looking for a solution to your pain, right now you can go to getnativepath.com. That's getnativepath.com/GodzillaWins. Getnativepath.com/GodzillaWins to learn more about Antarctic Krill Oil and claim your special offer for being a listener of the Godzilla Wins show. That's why researchers are saying to add this Antarctic Krill Oil to your diet, because it can really reduce that inflammation in a way that, remember, ibuprofen, just a Band-Aid. Always nice when you got a headache. It takes care of it. But when you just got that general inflammation going, you just head to toe, you're just inflamed. Head to toe, you got to get that checked out. Well, that's where Antarctic Krill Oil really comes in handy. I'm talking about omega-3 fatty acids, but not just any form of omegas. These are omega-3 fatty acids sourced from wild-caught krill. The omega-3 content from krill oil has been shown to support healthy blood pressure, circulation, brain health, as well as reduce inflammation, swelling, and joint pain. Better yet, for a limited time, you can grab Native Path Antarctic Krill Oil for as low as $23 a bottle. That's right. That's a steal right there. Just go to getnativepath.com, getnativepath.com/GodzillaWins to claim your special offer right now. And I've been taking these for about a week now, and I definitely feel a whole lot better when it comes to inflammation, which is something I do struggle with. Also, some people, like I'll just show you what they look like, right? So this is what they look like. They kind of taste like licorice. So some people don't like that kind of fishy smell. I don't know if you've taken omega-3s before. A lot of times you get that fishy smell. No fishy taste, no fishy smell with this krill oil. Just kind of tastes kind of sweet, some sort of sweet coating on the bottle. But of course, be aware that if you have a shellfish allergy, this is not the product for you. Just a disclaimer there on the bottle. So Antarctic Krill Oil, go to getnativepath.com/GodzillaWins to claim your Antarctic Krill Oil. Okay, Dad, I know you want to talk about the MLB draft. Happy to do that. We can close out the first hour with that, or we can do a little futures bets as well, kind of near the end. But go ahead and I know you want to ask Vince a question about the draft, so we can get started with that.
Yeah, so Vince, I think this is fascinating what Cleveland's doing, and I only happen to know this because I know the family. So JJ Weatherholt, which was last year projected to go number one, now he's like 1-5. But here's what I just want to get your take on this. So what we've heard is that Cleveland might pick him number one, and the reason why they might pick Weatherholt number one is because apparently Weatherholt has agreed to take about 60% of the top slot money for the first pick, which would be $5 to $6 million versus 10, which means that Cleveland would then save $4 million on that first pick, $4 to $5 million, maybe 4.5, save slot money in the first pick that they can then use to sign other players down the line. And I think from the Weatherholt team, it's a team now. It's the parents, it's the agent, it's the business manager. So the Weatherholt team is thinking, hey, if we go number one, okay, we'll take less money on the front end, right? Skeen's got 10. Obviously, he was going to take that. The guy on Georgia, he says 10. But he says, I'll take less money on the front end just to be number one. The rest of my life, I was 1-1. And then I can make that money up in the back end through marketing, promotions, and stuff of that nature, sponsors that I was a first round draft pick, number one. And I understand that the Guardians organization is actually considering that. And their view is, look, if we were 5, we'd probably pick the guy. We're number one. Maybe we do less money and pass up one of the other guys that wants $10 million. I think that's a pretty interesting strategy that the Weatherholt team came up with. I just want to get your take on that.
That is interesting. And I've heard the same thing, John. The one thing in baseball that you often see in basketball or the NFL is if they've identified as Weatherholt as their guy, why can't they trade down and take that number one pick to maybe they could probably get, let's be honest, they could probably get Weatherholt with maybe the 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th pick in the draft. Dan, you might be a little more versed on this than I am. Does MLB prohibit game day or draft day slot maneuvering when it comes to trades?
I mean, I know there's a rule that says that you can't Cleveland to do anything like that. You broke up a little bit, so I didn't completely hear your question. So Vince,
that was his question, basically. Just asking if.
That was the whole question. Okay.
But to get back to John is, 3-4 weeks ago, we were talking about Charlie Condon, Gaglione, Bazzano being surefire number one overall draft pick. And now all of a sudden, JJ Weatherholt has entered the picture with some interesting aspects when you look at it from the Cleveland standpoint. But to say you're the number one overall draft in the 2024 Major League Baseball draft, that's something that will be put on your tombstone.
You have that for the rest of your life, right?
So, right. Now, Dan, I want to get you involved in this conversation because as far as, the draft goes, you're one of those guys who's really locked into college baseball. So you have a good idea of like those first 5 or 6 slots. But the thing with this kind of drafting a guy who's not going to demand the max salary is something that that the Astros kind of pioneered back in those Carlos Correa days, where they picked "quote unquote" the best player available, but not the player who was going to demand a max kind of contract, and that left them some money aside for Dad's favorite player, Lance McCullers Jr., who has pitched a total of 4 games in the last 14 years. Paid him a ton of money, and it did work out. People were excited about that. It's a weird strategy because Carlos Correa is, like, in my opinion, a generational shortstop. So why he didn't demand the full money, I understand why in 2012, but it's like it wasn't exactly a gamble to like choose Carlos Correa number one. I mean, he worked out fine for the Astros. I'm wondering, Dan, if this is a strategy that if we're seeing a lot of teams do this, if this means that Weatherholt will end up the number one pick, and in your opinion, who should go number one?
mean, I think I'd probably go with Bazana number one. It's really tough because I mean you can certainly make a case for Condon, and yeah, it's not that uncommon of a strategy to take someone who's a little bit of a lesser player, um, on paper anyway, who's willing to sign for a little bit less so that you can make the numbers work, especially for a small market franchise like Cleveland. It sounds weird to call Cleveland a small market franchise because Cleveland's not exactly a small city, but Cleveland has run with such a low payroll for so long that the Guardians absolutely qualify. So it makes complete sense. And there, another reason why the trades don't happen in MLB is the Pete Incaviglia rule says that you can't trade someone until the end of the season in which they're drafted, because they changed the rule a little bit at the end of the 2015 season. It used to be that you couldn't trade a player until he had been on your roster for at least a year, because in 1985 the Expos drafted Pete Incaviglia and he refused to spend any time in the minor leagues at all. So the Expos traded him to the Rangers, who were willing to take him straight to Texas. And MLB decided, okay, we're not doing that anymore. So they passed that rule saying that, okay, you have to be on the roster for at least a full calendar year before you can be traded. So that's why we don't see any of those trades like we do in other sports.
Didn't you have the same thing, Dan, with that guy? And I forget names. The pitcher that came out, I think Vanderbilt, the hard throwing a rock or something. He came out of Vanderbilt. Somebody picked him, and he wouldn't report. He didn't want to go there. He didn't like the money. Then he played in the independent league. Newt Rockner or something. What was that? What?
Kumar Rocker.
Yeah, Kumar Rocker. Isn't that kind of the same thing? Like whoever picked him, he didn't want to go there, so he didn't like the money, so he sits out, and they couldn't do anything. They couldn't do anything with it. They just, I guess, lost the pick, and then he went to the independent league, Vince, I think, for 2 seasons. I don't know where he is now, but isn't that kind of the same deal?
Yeah, it's pretty similar. Like you saw players do this. You've seen players do this for years. Like when I was in college, I remember Aaron Crow at Missouri got picked and refused to sign, and I think went to play for Fort Worth in the independent league. Like that's still an option for players. So it's certainly a worry for teams to make that pick and watch their player go off and play somewhere else, because in other sports, you don't really have that happening as much. I mean, football, it virtually never happens. Like the last player I can remember doing anything like that was John Elway, because he had baseball as a fallback option. I mean, hockey, it's possible because players could go play in Sweden or Finland or Russia and still make a good living, but it doesn't happen in basketball. Baseball is really the only sport where that can happen, because drafted players can either go independent or, in some cases, if they're sophomores or juniors, can just go back to school.
So Vince, when you got somebody on the draft board that high, I mean, isn't the major league team talking to that players, agents and stuff, and like, hey, if we're thinking about you might go number 8. We got the 8th pick. This is kind of the money we're talking about. I mean, are they having those conversations up front?
Was that question directed towards me?
Yes.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Agents are talking to the professional organizations. There's direct contact with the family and the agent and the major league teams. No question about it. It's like I said, especially now with only 20 rounds, teams have to be pretty spot on. Hey, if I'm going to draft a guy high, top 3 rounds, I better sign him, because if I don't, I don't have the wealth that maybe I would have had 3-4 years ago when there were 40 to 50 rounds. So absolutely, those conversations are being done.
There's a lot of talent in this draft, but no clear number one, like we've been talking about, obviously last year, and we've seen years past. Paul Skeens was a clear number one, and thank God the Pirates picked him 1, because that's panned out better than I think I've ever seen a draft pick pan out so quickly. That's just been an incredible run for him so far this year. He's going to start the All-Star game, which is pretty incredible for someone who's a rookie and was drafted right around this time last year, now starting the All-Star game. Just a dominant player in that. But Dad, I kind of want you to make your case for JJ at number one. I mean, you have seen this guy play about as much as anyone who's on the air talking about this type of thing. So while, you might not be as locked into Charlie Condon or some of these other guys who are going to be at the top of the draft board, even though JJ might not be quote unquote like the clear number one, that idea has been floating around for many different reasons. So I want you to just take a minute here as someone who is not just a fan of West Virginia baseball, but has seen this guy play, knows his character, knows his discipline at the plate, his ability on defense, which is incredible. Speaking to the Guardians, if you're in that front office, why are you taking JJ number one?
Well, I'll tell you what, if the Astros had one of the top 5 picks, I'd get on a plane, fly down to Houston, bang on their door, Minute Maid, give my press credentials, and tell Dana Brown, this is the guy. I mean, you got to remember, as a junior, before he got hurt, J.J. Wetherhold hit .435 in Big 12 baseball. So, .435 was his average, and he hit like 20 homers or something. Now, this year was tough. He got hurt. He hurt his hamstring early at Stetson. But he's a complete player. Defense, arm, speed, baseball knowledge, baseball IQ, dedication, work ethic, clean living, doesn't drink, doesn't smoke, doesn't party, devout Christian, goes to church every day. I mean, my son said, biggest asset he's ever seen in the locker room. Joe comes in as a freshman, the upperclassman, this guy hit .435, right? Why should he talk to some freshman coming from Virginia Pro Baseball Academy, right? Why would you do that? First thing the guy did was take my son under his wing, give him the ropes. He didn't have to do that, and he did that with a lot of freshmen. And Joe said whenever the team had a bad day, he was the guy that made the speech. He was the guy that picked everybody up. He was the first guy out congratulating people. He said Joe said the first time he pitched college, he pitched 3 shutout innings. He said, I went in the dugout, Wetherhold came up, hugged me, and picked me up. I mean, you can't teach this. This isn't something that you go to baseball school to learn. This kid's an all-around player. He's got a great arm. He's got power. He's got a bat. He's got speed. And I just think he's an asset to any organization. And that he's never going to get in trouble. His work ethic's a 10. I think he's a very special player, and I hope he goes number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But whoever gets J.J. Wetherhold, he's going to be in that franchise a very long time, and he's going to make so many positive impacts on and off the field. Great pick, great player, and a special young man.
Yeah, I mean, I would just sort of second that for JJ. I mean, and I watched Charlie Condon and Travis Pizzana in the College World Series, kind of the whole College World Series. I don't think Oregon State was in the in Omaha. Dan, correct me.
I think they got to the Supers.
Yeah, that's right. And they're incredible players. Like, really, I mean, Condon is like, just to watch that guy just mash. I mean, it's pretty amazing to see. And then Pizzana has been like a number one, like the quote unquote number one pick for a while now. But I mean, being able to see JJ in person was pretty special for me. I mean, I definitely saw him get a hold of 1 or 2 balls and send them about 500 feet. Guy can really hit. He's got a great plate discipline. And I mean, they were, playing a really good team in TCU when I got to see him play. So, I think that strategy is an interesting one and can really work for the Guardians to, take someone that might not demand all that money, and then maybe they can do something interesting with their next pick and be a little bit more aggressive than they could. But, I mean, it could be lots of different reasons too. I mean, organizations have different needs. They may just feel like that he's a shortstop that they can take and mold into what they want for their organization. And I mean, if I was a player, I'd be hoping to get drafted by the Guardians. They're in first place. Like, to be drafted number 1, at some point you're going to get your shot. Rather get my shot with a team that's in first place than with the White Sox. That's for sure. But no, not, I mean, I guess the White Sox too would be nice, but I don't know. I'd probably rather be for the Guardians here. So we'll see how the draft shakes out. I believe that's Sunday. So we got a lot of big stuff going on Sunday. We're going to talk about some more of that coming up. We're going to talk about Copa America, a little U.S. men's soccer. We're going to do some Wimbledon. All that's going on Sunday, as well as the draft and the end of the Scottish Open. So we're like a big Sunday crew here coming forward. We want to thank Vince for coming on and joining us for this little MLB talk. Thank you, Vince. We'll see you again soon, I'm sure. I know you're on the East Coast, so you didn't have to wake up before the sun got up this time. So glad you could. And listen, guys, don't change the dial here. Next up, Jay Delson going to be joining us from Jay Delson Golf, and Mitch Rogers, Godzilla Wins contributor, coming up. We're going to be talking a whole bunch of different subjects. See you in about 1 minute.
You're listening to Godzilla Wins on the John Fredericks Media Network. For a deeper dive without the jive, visit the website of winners, GodzillaWins.com. Let's get back to the show with the guys in the know, John, Jack, and Nate. It's Godzilla Wins on the John Fredericks Media Network.
And you are listening to the Godzilla Win Saturday Pick Show. We are here with Mitch Rogers from GodzillaWins.com. We're going to be joined by Jay Delsing as well. My father will be back here in a minute. Before we get any further here, let's talk a little bit about Beard Vet Coffee, because forgot to talk about that in the first hour. Shout out to Beard Vet for making sure John is all caffeinated this morning and locked into the show. Beard Vet Coffee is some of the best coffee on the market. My favorite place to get some coffee right there. You go to beardvet.com. That's beardvet.com. And the options are endless. They just go on forever. You can get the K-Cups. You can get the fine ground coffee. You can get the whole bean coffee. I like the whole bean. I grab them. I can just grind them right up into wherever I got there. And then I love to have those beans there as well. But there's flavors too. So if you like, blueberry or all the different flavors, you can get those as well at beardvet.com. That's beardvet.com. Incredible coffee, and they get it to you so quickly because you don't want to be waiting around for that coffee, especially when it's Beard Vet, because once you start drinking it, you just can't stop. And so you don't want to run out. That's like the worst thing in the world, run out of your Beard Vet coffee. And if you order it before you run out, it's going to get there quickly, 2-3 days tops. And with the Godzilla promo, get you 10% off. So go to beardvet.com, order some right now. Beardvet.com, promo code Godzilla, just like the show here. Promo code Godzilla, get you 10% off all of your coffee needs. Okay, guys, we are going to move into a little bit of soccer. I'm glad Mitch is here for both soccer and Wimbledon. I'm all caught up on my Wimbledon news, so I can talk to you a little bit about that. Watched the Djokovic match yesterday, so I'm good to go. I got all sorts of ideas on how tennis should be played now that I watched the match. So we'll talk about that in a little bit. But Dan, before we do that, we got to get to the news. I mean, this is like your own personal, like this could be like a short story. The arc of Berhalter's career here, the last month for you. This has just been a wild ride as you've been banging the drum for getting this guy off as the manager of the U.S. men's team. It's now happened. Then there was all this news about Jurgen Klopp, maybe them hiring Klopp, and he has, I guess, said no. But I mean, Dan, as we know, sports is weird. No sometimes doesn't always mean no until they hire someone you don't know. So first, I just want your reaction, Dan, on the Berhalter firing and who you think should be the next coach. Then we'll get to Mitch here, who I think might have some ideas as well.
Yeah. So, okay, first, I just saw your message in the private chat about an FSU baseball hat. I'm not a fan of the team. I just happen to see them a lot.
I know, that's why I got to get the hat,
Okay, Jack, my in-laws are Gator fans. You're going to get me killed.
Oh, even better. Not to get you killed, but, always good to stoke a little family rivalry at Thanksgiving. So
Lord.
No, I'll get you a Florida Gators hat. Shout out to the Gators.
Oh, jeez. Anyway, hats aside, I mean, this move had to happen. It's great that it finally did because Berhalter has proven that he is not the right coach to lead the U.S. into the World Cup. And now the question is getting the right guy. And going after Klopp was a good first shot. I don't think the U.S. has to make a move too early because there are no competitive matches for this team for the next really year plus, because the Gold Cup is going to be the only option, the only opportunity that this team has to really test itself at all. And that's against CONCACAF sides anyway. So it's not really that big of a deal. So I think that the U.S., if the right coach presents themselves, go get them. But if not, you don't have to make a panic hire. So they can afford to let Euros, let Copa America play out, see if a big name that they haven't really thought of yet becomes available. And if not, there are still some really big names that could be gettable. I mean, Joachim Löw from Germany, he won the 2014 World Cup. Granted, the U.S. might be a little bit skittish about going with a German manager again after the Klinsmann failure, but for all of his failures, Jurgen Klinsmann did at least get the U.S. to the knockouts at the 2014 World Cup. I mean, he had things going decently. The U.S. just stuck with him one cycle too long. So the U.S. does not need to go for somebody who's going to be there for 6-10 years the way Didier Deschamps has been at France. They need someone who can go through this next World Cup cycle in 2 years and then reassess at that point, see if there's mutual interest. But the goal should only be 2026. And maybe get a Hervé Renard, who is currently the coach of the French women's soccer team. He said that he's leaving after the Olympics because he wants to get back to men's soccer. He's had good results with Morocco and Saudi Arabia, who are similar talent levels to what the U.S. has shown. So that's going to be interesting because apparently Nigeria is also in talks for trying to sign him. So that could be a situation where the U.S. has to really pull the trigger pretty quickly. Thomas Tuchel is a name I've heard about. He was the manager at Chelsea. I think that would be probably the wrong move because he did not do well with Christian Pulisic and Adam at Chelsea. So I'm hoping that they don't go in that direction. But I mean, it'd be hard to be disappointed if they do get a Joachim Löw or somebody like that.
Mitch, we're bringing this conversation here. I know you're locked into U.S. men's soccer. Before we get into that, though, Mitch, shout out your newest article on GodzillaWins.com, which is the rebranding of Russell Wilson. We are slowly branding Godzilla Wins as like a Pittsburgh Steelers website, and I say that because on the Twitter handle, which, you know, I mean, we have small social media following, but we love our social media engagement, of course. A lot of fun. When we posted the Russell Wilson stuff, a handle called Pittsburgh Injury Lawyers liked the post. we're going full yins here when the Pittsburgh Injury Lawyers handle is like, oh, hell yeah, another Mitch Rogers article on the Steelers. Love it. So yeah.
I'd like to take credit, but the Pittsburgh fan base is pretty rabid. They don't care who the writer is per se. If you just put anything about Russ, anything, they just no. But it was funny doing that article because, you know, before Russell Wilson came our way, I mean, I knew about his college career just because NC State, he took over for a local high school kid that we used to follow. So I've been following him for a while. But the fact that he had his catchphrases and slogans even at Wisconsin to this level of cheesiness, cringiness, whatever you want to call it, has just been a pattern forever. To actually research it was fun, just to see his level of being that guy. And like I said in the article, it all will work if he wins. If he doesn't win, he'll be the cringiest Steeler of all time. So it'll be interesting to see how.
Yeah, we'll see about Russ, but you're right. If it does work, every Steelers fan is going to be yelling his catchphrase. I don't know if that picked up in Denver as much, but what I know from Steelers fans is whatever works, they're behind that. They got that. So shout out to the article. You can go to GodzillaWins.com and read all about Russell Wilson from Mitch Rogers there. That was pretty funny. Shout out to Pittsburgh Injury Lawyers as well. Go give them a follow on X. So let's get back to soccer though here, Mitch. So what are your thoughts on this? On Berhalter getting fired? Do you agree with Dan about some of the different options for the coaches? Where are we with that?
Yeah, I mean, so I agree with Dan's point of view, and I'm glad he's looking somewhere else besides MLS. I mean, you know, when you're looking at some of the other websites running around, a lot of the main candidates have kind of the same track record where we got Berhalter. We seem to love to take these MLS coaches. They have a good track record and put them on this U.S. team, but this might be time for a change because Cherundola's name's out there, Jim Curtin's name's out there, and they just seem some of the same to me, right? It's like, so it would be nice to make a splash. I know the French women's coach is in the mix.
Renard,
too. Yeah. There's so many names out there, but I'm with you. It'd be nice to have someone with experience with another club that's won in this arena before, because like I said, we're 30 years into this since this rebuild, and we're nowhere closer than we've been. So I would like them to see them not go the route of picking an MLS coach and go with the same route Dan said. But you're right; they don't have to make a move anytime soon. They can wait and really vet out the candidates and find someone that's best for them and best moving forward. So
and to speak to what Jack said about Jurgen Klopp saying like no, it's like they have time because he didn't want to do it now because he said he needed a break from football for a while. But it's like maybe in 6 months after he's had a little break,
maybe some cheddar.
Maybe you're like check still cashes. Maybe he wants to come back. I think that they have time to wait for something like that, which is like best case scenario.
Dan, would the Klopp hire make sense? I mean, I'm a soccer I guess novice, right? So I know who Jurgen Klopp is because I watched soccer enough to know, the biggest names in soccer. But I wouldn't know. I don't know enough about soccer to know the ins and outs of how a different coach might affect a team structure, strategy. Is like for the U.S. men's team, if they were able to entice Klopp into this position, would that even make sense for them?
Yeah, I mean, it would certainly make sense. The biggest risk with Klopp is that he has never managed a national team. I mean, all of his work has been at the club level, which is incredible. I mean, he's been a winner at Borussia Dortmund and at Liverpool. So he's certainly shown that he knows his tactics. He knows where to put guys and get the most out of them. The question is, can he do that with the national team where you can't bring in free agents? You can't just pay somebody more and get them to come over. Like what you've got is what you've got. So it'll be interesting. I mean, I think the answer is yes, but it would be interesting to see how things shake out when he doesn't have that. The U.S. has a talent advantage over some of the smaller countries, but they're certainly not going to out-talent an England, a Spain, a Germany, and they won't have to in the group stage because they're going to be a seeded team by virtue of being a host nation. But when you get to that round of 32, round of 16 matchup, you're going to have to play one of these bigger countries.
Yeah, so I mean, we'll keep our eye on this major news. I think pretty much everyone who is a soccer fan and watched the U.S. men's performance in Copa America was hoping that Berhalter would get fired. And just as Dan predicted, if this was the perfect spot, like they couldn't get far enough to justify him, his keeping him. So they were able to kind of let him go in a way that I think everyone who follows that U.S. men's team is happy to see him gone.
It's the only time that I've openly rooted for a U.S. national team loss was that Panama match, because I knew they weren't beating Uruguay. And if they didn't beat Panama, there was no way that they were going to be able to keep Berhalter on.
Yeah, no way. I mean, I think you're right about that. So, we'll see what happens, and we'll keep following that news. I want to do a little bit more Copa America before we get into Wimbledon here, and we're going to talk a little bit about Rosies as well. Dad's got to talk to us a little bit about that in a minute. But before we do that, let's just do, Dan, a couple minutes on Copa America, then Mitch and Nate, if you have anything on just this finals match. This is going to be, I believe, Colombia, Argentina for the finals. We can do a little, sort of betting, some handicap here, what we see in the market and how we feel about this matchup here. This Sunday should be a really fun one. Dan, we'll start with you since you're the soccer guy. We'll go to Mitch after that. What are the things to look for in the Copa America final, Argentina v. Colombia?
Well, there's actually two finals going on Sunday because the Euro final is also Sunday. And that's going to be very interesting to see if England can shake off the pressure of coming so close yet again and having to face a Spain side that has been just dominating everyone it plays and really looking like they've had a lot of fun doing it. So I lean towards Spain in the Euros. I just think England's going to find a way to screw it up again. As far as the Copa America goes, Argentina, it's really tough to pick them because as dominant as they've been, you guys have heard the phrase iron sharpens iron. What Argentina's been through in this tournament is the exact opposite. I mean, they have faced a really weak schedule throughout this tournament. They got a group of Canada, Peru, and Chile. Canada was decent, but not fantastic. Peru and Chile never scored a goal in the entire tournament. And then they barely survived Ecuador. Colombia, on the other hand, has been through Brazil. They've gotten through Uruguay. I mean, they've been a very strong team throughout this tournament, and I think they've shown more flair. I think they're a younger, more cohesive unit at this point, and it honestly wouldn't be the worst thing in the world for Argentina to get a wake-up call before the 2026 cycle comes around, because Lionel Messi is still an amazing player, but he's clearly running up against the final years of his career, and it's very debatable as to whether he's even going to be fit enough or talented enough to still be on the roster in 2026. So I think it's Colombia's time, and plus 320 on Colombia to win the match in regular time was really enticing to me.
Yeah, that's what I was about to ask Mitch. You know, Mitch, you got Argentina plus 115, draw plus 195, and plus 320 for Colombia. Colombia has been playing really well. I mean, that's a lot of plus money. Obviously, Argentina has Lionel Messi, so one of the reasons they're favored, of course. But is some smart money on Colombia there? Plus 320 is pretty nice for a finals match in soccer.
I love it. No, yeah, the plus 320 on Colombia is definitely the play. I think the line is being set on basically because it's the name Argentina. Dan's right there. They haven't faced really much competition going throughout this. In Colombia, you know, unbeaten in 20 plus. They're flying through. The Uruguay win was so impressive, and I think it's their time. I mean, they've lost. It just feels like their time. They've lost Argentina 10 or 11 times in a row, or won once in the last 12. Yeah. And they're playing better than them. And if they didn't have the name Messi and Argentina attached to it, I think this line would be flipped. Honestly, I do. And so
I think you're right.
I think it's smart money, really smart money on Colombia.
Yeah. One thing to touch on for listeners who might not be that familiar with soccer betting, it might seem weird to see a draw listed as an option in a final, but for soccer bets, only the first 90 minutes count. Anything that happens in extra time or penalties does not count toward your bet. So if you take Colombia to win and Colombia wins 2-1 in extra time, that's not a win. That's a loss because the match technically ended as a draw.
You know, that's important information for people
very
who don't bet soccer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It can be easy to just get lost in the maze of like soccer bets because you think like, you know, as an NFL bettor, for most people, like, you know, you click on it and there's like one bet. And then for soccer, it's a list.
Yeah. So I call soccer the craps table of sports betting because there's just so many options. If you want to take that draw possibility off the table, there's a play called a draw no bet, where if the match is a draw, it's a push. So Colombia on a draw no bet is still plus 175, which is still very good.
Yeah, absolutely. Dan, I think you've hit two correct scores here, which is my favorite in a while. Do you want to give out a correct score for Argentina, Colombia, or you want to wait till your article?
I can go ahead and tease what I'm going to do now. So yeah, let me find where the lines are for correct score here on DraftKings. So this one, if it hits, is going to be really nice. I'm going to go Colombia 2, Argentina 1, which would pay out at plus 1,200.
Yeah, I love that.
Yes.
So
yeah, I'll take it.
And look, I mean, for those listening, if you like to have fun when it comes to betting soccer, I edit and publish a lot of soccer, like gambling picks or whatever. And when someone starts heating up on correct scores, it is like the craps table. It is like when you get on a heater in blackjack. Like they just like someone who does it all the time. They hit, and then they stop hitting. So Dan's hot right now. Ride the wave with Dan. I'm gonna go with that 2-1 correct score plus 1,200. I mean, you know, just some peanuts on there, get you a little action. Could be a lot of fun. So
the best I've ever done with a correct score was right when the Bundesliga came back after the pandemic. First match, Borussia Dortmund 4-0 against Schalke, plus 2,200.
Oh, love that. That's incredible.
Yeah, turn $3 into 55.
We're gonna move on to Wimbledon here in a minute. Gonna ask Jay Delsing. He's been in the waiting room. We're going to invite him in to join us. But before we do that, Dad, we want to talk a little bit about Rosie's Gaming Emporium. Now, Big news in the horse racing industry. One, Dad, you've got your suite that Ann told me you are not going to be able to enjoy as much as you think you are this year after your 3-week vacation in the Cape there. So we'll have to get an update on that as well. And then also, you told me you're going to buy a horse last week, so we want to keep updates on that. I talked to Ann, and she was pretty skeptical about that idea as well. So seems like you've got a lot of convincing to do coming up in a minute. But one thing you don't have to convince Ann is to go to Rosie's, because it is one of the best places in Virginia, the best place in Virginia to have a little bit of fun. So tell us a little bit about Rosie's.
Well, first of all, somebody earlier was talking about the word no. I don't know which one of you panelists, but I was getting my coffee and somebody talked about no means not no or maybe, or you guys don't know Ann. All right. I mean, no, there's no way back from the word no. Okay. It just doesn't exist. So
we're not trying to hire Ann to coach the men's soccer team, John.
You just walk, whatever I remember you saying, well, no is kind of maybe. I'm like, you haven't met my wife, because it's when Jack asks Ann something, she says no. I mean, all the kids know it. You just move on, right? There's no, now me, I can say no 50 times and they'll keep coming back and,
words don't matter a lot to you as much as they do to other people.
I mean,
keep going.
It's just the immediate feeling that John has that leads to the response.
I know, but there's a flip side to this, okay? Because, well, you guys, Jack and Nate, eventually you guys are going to get married. Mitch and Dan know this. There's a flip side to this, okay? So even though no is like, I get it after 30 some odd years, I get it, right? But anything except a hard no is a yes. Anything. I'll think about it. I doubt it. I don't think so. Not going to happen. Not in your lifetime. Now, maybe is like, I go do it. Like, yeah, maybe. Okay, well, maybe I'll think about it. Well, then I do it. And she's like, why'd you do this? And I said, well, you didn't say no. So maybe becomes yes. So you got to turn it, right? Maybe is an automatic yes, because you never get a yes. So maybe is a yes. And anything other than a hard no means you start plotting to go forward to get there, right? So there is a flip side to this. You guys figure out how to work it with your spouses or your significant others, right? I'm a master at it. I could write a book. I am the best ever at doing this. Now, Rosie's
eternal optimism.
No, there. I'm very optimistic. Okay, I'm going to get in the horse business after a while. Might not be this year. Now, here's the only thing about Rosie's. That's a yes. Hey, hon, you want to go to Rosie's? Yes. Hey, hon, you want to go to Colonial Downs? Yes. I don't even have to get the words out. She's like, you had me at hello, right? Like Jerry Maguire. So it's all good. But you go to Rosie's, man, you're going to have so much fun. Highest jackpots, bigger than ever. Payouts, bigger than ever. Why? Well, because the Virginia General Assembly, who is trying to weasel skill games up your butt, Youngkin vetoed it. Thank you, Governor. Only thing you did that you're going to go down in history. Biggest jackpots. Why? Because they got the lowest takeout. Means more money that's put in goes back to the players. Brilliant. Plus, Colonial Downs Racing. I can't believe I'm not there. Instead, I'm on my mega Trump bus here in Milwaukee at some hotel with the Pennsylvania delegation. And that's where I am for the next week and a half. So I miss Rosie's opening day, but Rosie's right now today. You're in Virginia, you can go there. You go to Colonial Downs post time, 1:30 p.m. today on Sunday. No, Saturday, right? No, I'm sorry. This is Saturday. 4:30 on Saturday, 1:30 on Friday, and Sunday. Go to Colonial Downs, rosesgaming.com. Have fun, win money. Now you can get your box seats right now. Admission is always free, but get the beautiful box grandstand seats or get up in the Jockey Club where you get a table right by the window. Got that huge stretch. It's phenomenal. Greatest track in the world, tied with Saratoga, Oak Lawn, number 3. Beautiful track. Check it out. rosesgaming.com. Get your tickets now.
Okay, we're going to bring in Jay Delsing here, going to give us a huge panel for the next.
Have we ever had a 6-man screen before?
What's up, Jay Bird?
Saturday 6-pack.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if we've done the 6-man screen before, but I kind of like it now that we have it. Yeah.
Hey, can I give a shout out to Nate because we're going to do golf? I got to give a shout out to.
We're going to do tennis, but go for it.
Yeah, but I got to get before we forget, because I never bet golf in my life. I think I played it 5 times. I don't know any of the players. I'm on the show. This is the value of the show. I'm on the show last week. I got DraftKings on my phone. I'm like, Nate, I want to bet $50, right? Who should I bet?
Davis Thompson.
$25. Who should I bet? You guys are debating it back and forth. And Nate says, I like some guy Davison at 10-1. I don't know who Davison is. I figure, okay, 10-1. So I bet $25 at Davison at 10-1. I look at my account, it went $250. And I'm texting Nate. I'm like, so Nate texted me, said, you guys ahead by 6. I'm like, what does that mean? Is that good? He's like, yeah, there's only 7 holes. There's only 9 holes to go. And now he's up by 3, but they're running out of holes, he says. So thanks, Nate, for making me $250. Thank you.
Yeah, just
Well done, Nate.
I could spend months doing this and never give you a winner. And the one time you actually put money on it, you get a winner. Unbelievable.
Hey,
Yeah.
At least he's willing to occasionally put money on the sport that you're talking about. We go into my sport of expertise and take a nap.
Yeah, that's true. That is true. But don't ever, Dad, get out while you're ahead.
Incorrect
Yeah,
scores
just-
in a row, and John wouldn't get interested.
No, he wouldn't. Get out while you're ahead, Dad. Don't ever bet golf again. You will whatever you made, you will lose slowly, painfully as the season goes on. Betting golf is such a grind. I saw a tweet once that was like, golf touts are so ridiculous. Like they win one bet a year and they're just like, oh, I'm up. And that's kind of how it goes. You just lose, then bam, you hit the winner. But the odds are long and those tournaments are always good. We're going to talk a little bit about the Scottish Open with Jay in a little bit. But Jay, before we get into that, glad to have you on the show. Just tell everyone about Golf with Jay Delsing and your show on the John Fredericks Radio Network, where people can find it, where people can find you as well for the show, which comes on after this show.
Yeah, thanks, guys. And John, thanks for having me. And I love being on. We had our first couple of shows last week. We are on Saturday and Sunday from 11 to 12 on the John Fredericks Media Network. You can go to apps. The apps are fantastic. I got it on my phone. Listen to it. It's hard listening to your voice over and over. You're saying, because you kind of go, oh boy. But we had Lee Trevino on the show last week. We've got Ian Woosen on this week, and you go to jdelsinggolf.com and find us there. I'm not much of a social media person. I'd rather hang out with all 5 of you guys and not tell anybody where we are, not take a picture of my food, not do any of that thing. But that's not good for social media aspects. So I'm on X, but I don't know how many followers I have. I'm on Instagram too, and I don't know how many followers I have. I think it's just all at Jay Delsing. If you want to Venmo me something, that's at Jay Delsing too. I try to keep it simple because I don't know any of this stuff. Just kidding about the Venmo, but we're having a blast. One of the cool things about the show this week, Ian Woosen, guys, back in the day, Ian Woosen was part of the Big Five. So Ian Woosen, Sandy Lyle, Bernard Langer, Seve Ballesteros, and Nick Faldo were all born within 12 months of each other. And basically, those 5 guys are responsible for the European Tour. And they did what, and then they also are responsible for the reason why the Ryder Cup got expanded from Great Britain and Ireland to all of Europe, because nobody cared at all about the Ryder Cup when it was just Great Britain and Ireland, because the U.S. just rolled them every year. But these guys were coming from those different European countries. And so we talk a little bit, we talk with Woozy, and he's also 5'5" and won the 1991 Masters and ranked number 1 in the world. So really interesting guy, accent, full-blown English, Scottish, whatever that is, not easy to understand. So it's a good guest this week for the Scottish Open, and then the Open Championship coming next week.
And we're going to talk a little bit about the Scottish Open and the Open Championship here in a minute. I want to talk Wimbledon before we do that. Now, we can just touch on the women's here, and we'll start with Mitch, who's a big Wimbledon guy here, and then go around the horn to some of our thoughts. But because the women's finals is, I believe, going on right now.
They're in the third set.
Yeah, they're in the third set. That's going to be Krejcikova and Paolini. Kind of interesting. Krejcikova was a bit of a surprise to get here. And she won the first set, which they're playing right now. She won the first set 6-2 pretty handily. Then Paolini came back 6-2 in the second set. So then the third set, Paolini's up 1-0. So we could literally talk some just live, like in-game betting if you wanted to. But Mitch, just talk a little bit about, for those who don't follow the women's maybe as closely, don't know who Krejcikova is, how we got here, and what you think may happen within this next set, since they're tied right now, 1-1.
Tied up. We got she's been super impressive. Her semifinal match against Rabakina, is that how to pronounce it, was super impressive because she lost the first set, came back in thunderous fashion, and just dominated the last two. Paulini also was tested really hard in her semifinal match with Vekic. So yeah, this is a good one, and what I'm liking, and we talked about before, is the name recognition for all these young stars are really coming through, and you'll see that on the men's side, where we have another kid going for his fourth Grand Slam title already, and he's barely 21. So I would be very interested to see this last match, and we'll be following it while I'm talking to you guys.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at it right now too. Looks like Krejcikova just won another bet, so now it's 1-1. Dan, what do you see here? I mean, again, the lines are changing all the time, so unless you have an in-game thing that you really like to bet, and we'll move on to Alcaraz here in a minute, but just one or two things you see on Krejcikova, Paulini, and how exciting this match has been so far.
I mean, at this point, it's really a coin flip, because going into this match, I thought that 6-2 first set that Krejcikova pulled off, I thought that was the key to the match for her, because I thought that Paulini would have some self-doubt creeping in, given what happened in the French Open final, because she got to that final and she just got blasted by Swiatek. So she's not on a surface that she likes very much. Grass is really foreign to most Italian players, and most Western Europeans in general, because they grow up on clay, and the grass is just so different from clay because the ball bounces differently. The points are much faster on grass, but Paulini has really settled in on the grass, and she's really shown a lot mentally. Like, I thought that getting routed in the first set again might break her, and it hasn't happened. She came back with a really strong second set, and she's got to be a slight favorite at this point, with the third set being a coin flip between two really talented players. She's now settled in, and I think that was the worst thing that could have happened to Krejcikova.
Yeah, I think you're probably right there. And, we're most likely, tennis being tennis, we might be able to catch the end on television right when this show's over. But you guys won't be catching it because you'll be listening to Golf with Jay Delsing there. So, you'll have to follow along on your phone while you listen to Jay. And Jay's, I would say, uninspired social media pitch there. Not the most energetic. Hey, give me a follow there when you're like, I hate social media.
I found like 3 different Instagram accounts for Jay, and one of them actually had a post from Gus's world famous fried chicken. So that's freaking awesome.
You got to check out his MySpace page. It's lit.
Oh Lord.
Yeah.
Mitch, you're just aging all of us with a MySpace reference.
John, help me out here, man. I know you.
You'd be the only one with one.
There's only so many. Look, there's only so much time that these millennials I could deal with, Jay.
Don't even start with me, Dad. No. You are the biggest social media addict on this whole panel. You are on Twitter all the time. All you do is tweet. You have 4 different Twitter accounts. You have a West Virginia baseball Twitter account. You got a Twitter account for your cat. Do not go in here telling me these millennials and their social media. You are addicted to social media. And 3 or 4 years ago during Thanksgiving, all you did was talk about how you had 40,000 followers on Twitter and you're this big deal. And we were just trying to have turkey. So don't even start with me about, millennials love social media. You are the biggest social media addict in this whole arena. You're always calling me being did you see my video? It got 16 likes or whatever. So calm down. Let's talk about the women's, because I'm not going to listen to you just do some sort of nonsense there. Let's talk about the men's. I mean, now I'm really excited about this.
I'm with Jay. Jay, I'm with you.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm going to need help. I need counseling. I need something.
Yeah. Jay, you can always Venmo Jay. There you go. So listen, let's
I don't know. What is Venmo? Is that like a PayPal?
Yeah, it's for money.
Yes, it's similar.
So let's talk about the men's here. Let's start with Nate. We got Alcaraz going for his second in a row at Wimbledon. Then we'll go to then we'll talk about Novak here, who won a pretty impressive match yesterday. Of course, Novak is incredible, and this is a surface that, I mean, he's always been pretty successful at, though he's always been successful at every surface. Alcaraz has been really good this time. Nate, what do you see here? Alcaraz minus 145, Djokovic plus 115.
I mean, it's not anything new. We saw this is just a rematch of last year's final, which Alcaraz won. And I think that the biggest question mark, just, for people that maybe aren't sort of locked into tennis is, the biggest question mark is Djokovic coming off knee surgery and whether that knee is going to hold up in the final. It's looked okay so far. He hasn't been moving quite as well as, probably we're used to seeing, but that, how much of that is a product of just the knee and how much of a product is that of just Djokovic is kind of, getting pretty old, like a little long in the tooth for a tennis player. So, from that aspect, like it's interesting. From the aspect of betting it, I think I'm inclined to like Djokovic to sort of avenge losing last year's final. I like him as an underdog. Obviously, Alcaraz is, if he's not the best on grass, he's pretty close. But Djokovic is also probably in that conversation. I think I'm going to lean towards the underdog Djokovic, just because I think we're getting a little value because there's that question mark about the knee, which hasn't sort of hindered him that much. I like the underdog here. I like him to avenge last year's loss. I think that he can eke this out. I mean, when we're talking about Djokovic, we're talking about, he's in the conversation for the greatest ever. I mean, you got to take him as an underdog here, I think.
Yeah, Mitch. So the thing with Djokovic in the knee, right? I mean, now Musetti, like he beats Musetti 3-0 basically. But if you watch that match, like Musetti put up a pretty good fight for every single set, really. I mean, he pushed him to a play, like a whatever they call it, playoff 7-6 in the second one. And he's really pushed Joker to play, I think, his best, but Djokovic still wins all three. To me, the knee looked fine. Like he was moving pretty quick. He didn't seem to be clutching the knee. He didn't seem to be complaining about anything. He played his game. He won up near the net a bunch. My favorite stat that I saw yesterday with Djokovic is that he is, I think now something like 64-0 at Wimbledon when winning the first two sets. That's Djokovic. He's 266-1 now in all majors after winning the first two sets. So he's only ever lost one, major match when winning the first two. Now, I mean, of course, it's Djokovic. You win the first two sets, you have to kind of collapse to lose the match, but still pretty incredible stat. Do you feel the same way Nate does, Mitch, that this knee is not as big of an issue and that he can avenge his loss last year, or does Alcaraz really have the advantage being so much younger and being so good on grass?
Yeah, I mean, I think Alcaraz would have the physical advantage, but Alcaraz has struggled this tournament too, or it hasn't been as easy. Even he is the best player on grass, probably most likely, but struggled early on and then lost the first set in his quarterfinals and the semifinals. He needs to get off to a fast start, I think, to really have a chance against Joker. But I'm with Nate. The knee is definitely an issue, but it's also a combination of, and we know what it's like when you get older. You get an injury, and also combined with being older, it just exasperates that situation, and all of a sudden you show your age a little bit faster. And I think that's what's happening. I still think he can pull some of these off, and I think, like I said, I don't think Alcaraz is playing his best. He's vulnerable, and if he doesn't get off to a fast start, and that I didn't know that stat about Novak, that's insane. So if Djokovic gets out to a 1-set lead or 2-set lead, obviously he has the advantage, of course. I mean, just the math involved in there, but I like him as an underdog. He's got a chip on his shoulder. The stuff with the crowd and walking out of his interview the other day. So I like the Joker. I like the stances he's taken the last few years against the world too. So I just have sentiment for him, and I like to see the old guys whip up on the young kids. So just from that standpoint, I'll put my money on Joker. And
guys, how about the speed of the game? How about the speed of the men's game is insane.
Oh yeah.
Serving. I mean, if you didn't have TV, I don't think I could watch. I mean, I would have no idea where this ball's
and
going.
especially on grass.
Yeah,
Right.
I mean, it's 125-mile-an-hour serves when they're not super tired. What I love is the camera angle where they show it every once in a while behind one of the players, and they just follow the match from like Mussetti's point of view, basically, from yesterday. And in that view, you can see how fast that tennis ball is going, and you're just like, oh my God. I mean, I cannot believe these, and they get to him so quickly. It's pretty amazing, and especially on grass, as Dan said. But Dan, like I said, I mean, I thought Djokovic was moving really well. I mean, one of the things about him, knee injury or not, is he is so good at anticipating where the ball's going. Like he knows he's going to hit it here, and that return is going to basically come. He never guesses wrong. That's what makes him so good all the time. So whether he's fast anyway, but he beats the ball to its spot all the time. But I mean, we seem to be drinking the Djokovic Kool-Aid. I don't know. I mean, look, Alcaraz has been dominant, and he should be the favorite, man.
To Mitch's point, like this was something that I mentioned in my Wimbledon preview. Was it is so hard to do the double because you go through the French Open, and then you turn around and you have less than a month to recover and play Wimbledon, which is just as hard a tournament, totally different mindset, because it's a totally different game going from clay to grass. And there's a reason that the only players who have won the double are considered all-time greats. I mean, out of the last 40 years, there are 5 players who have done it on both sides. Nadal, Federer, Djokovic, Serena, and Steffi Graf. I mean, you don't need, you say any of those names and everybody instantly knows Hall of Famer. So if Alcaraz can pull this off, we're talking about a generational talent. I mean, Jay, answer this for me. How hard would it be if you had to win the US Open and then 3 weeks later had to go play on the British Open?
Well, the difficulty, because you're talking about 2 entirely different types of golf, right? When you go over, but I mean, to have your game peaking against everybody else, and it all goes back, Dan. It's a great point. It's the generational talents that are able to do that. It's Tiger Woods has been able to, win. No one since Bobby Jones has been able to do the Grand Slam, which is win all 4 majors in a year. So Tiger kind of had it in a calendar, in a non-calendar year where it one year overlapped, but it's insanely impossible in golf. Yeah. I mean, you're talking about how difficult it is to pick the winners. It just doesn't happen in tennis either. You have to have so many things go your way. I thought it was interesting. Roger Federer did a commencement speech at, I forget which school up in New England. Dartmouth. And he was talking about they're like, how, he talked about how many overall matches he's won, how many Grand Slams he's won, but his winning percentage in those matches was like 53%. And so he was saying, even though I'm going to go down as one of the best tennis players ever, it was touch and go. Yeah. And you have to work hard. You have to try to figure out how to get it out. And you also have to have some luck, guys.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think, and especially when you're doing that kind of back-to-back, these 2 major championships, you don't see it happen that much. So I think next week, if depending on what happens on Sunday, if Alcaraz wins, I think we need to have a segment, those kind of reactionary segments that are always indicative of sports radio, which is, is Alcaraz headed for greatness, that kind of thing. But if he wins this, I think that's a legitimate question that we can ask for the future of tennis. And so, we'll see how the match goes tomorrow. I do think, I like watching, it'd be fun to watch Joker win, 37 years old, so dominant, the violin thing, after winning the match and taunting everyone. And, everybody cheers against him, stuff like that. He loves being the heel, and he's fun. You got to have a heel in tennis. You have to. And he's always been good in that role, and he's a lot of fun to watch. So the match should be really incredible. We'll see if he can avenge. For my part, I'm just going to go with Alcaraz because I do think that while Joker is Joker, I think Alcaraz really is the real deal, and I think he's going to get it done for his second Wimbledon, and he's peaking at the right time. Before we get into some golf, and I know Dad's going to be locked in here because now he's a golf sicko after he won.
Locked in, baby.
This will be his favorite segment. Before we do that, we got to talk a little bit about Healthy Cell's joint health and mobility, some of my favorite products from Healthy Cell. You hear me talk about it early in the show. You hear me talk about it late in the show, and that's because I love Healthy Cell. I love all of their products, but what I really love, and I take it every day, is joint health and mobility. We talked about Native Pass Antarctic Krill Oil, which does help with the inflammation for just sort of general inflammation. Those omega-3s are really helpful for all of that stuff. Shout out to Native Path. But for Healthy Cell, you got to be able to make sure that your joints are healthy at all times, regardless of how old you are. This stuff can really hobble you, whether it's the elbows or the knees or the wrists, anything like that. And even if you're doing moderate exercise, you play basketball, you play tennis, you play golf, or you run, you weight lift, whatever you do, joint health and mobility from Healthy Cell can really help make those activities a little bit more enjoyable, because there's nothing worse than like just some stupid tweak in the knee where like you're not an athlete. We're not Djokovic. Here, we're just trying to move around a little bit and not be on our couch all day long as Americans. And here we are, trying to run a little bit, and it's like this knee tweak or this elbow tweak. You're playing golf, Nate doesn't know about this because he's been shooting in the 60s, so he's got no issues with his golf. What, didn't you shoot in the 60s again?
Yeah. Yeah, 69 again last week. Yeah.
I'm telling you, Jay, we got to get him out there, play around with you, see how you guys do together.
Love it. Bring some money, Nate. I'll give you some lessons. You'll be right where you want to be. Get you right up to 80 again.
He's a +2.
Oh, there we go.
I love it.
Love that. So listen, go to healthycell.com. That's healthycell.com. Little joint health and mobility. One of my favorite products at Healthy Cell. Put in the promo code Godzilla. We love that promo code Godzilla, Dad, because it gets you 20% off. Not the usual 10, not like all these other joke promo codes you got out there. We got our 20% off for Healthy Cell. So go ahead and grab some joint health and mobility. Love the product, and shout out to Healthy Cell for being such an incredible sponsor for us. Okay, Dad, here's your segment, golf time. We got to see who you can punch in for another win here, another W. And we got some real golf sickos here. We got Mitch, we got Jay, and we got Nate. Now, Jay, I want to start with you because the thing I love about the Scottish Open, and correct me if you feel like I'm wrong here, but it is, if you're just following golf or you're following, who to maybe look for next week, the Open Championship, the Scottish Open is like the primer. It's like if you're playing well at the Scottish Open, because it's different golf than, like you said, the U.S. Open or the Masters, totally different course, totally different golf. The Scottish Open is a good window into who might be successful next week, whose game is peaking in links golf. Now, Adam Scott and McIntyre are on top here because they've played. Abear hasn't started yet. Rosner hasn't started yet. Fleetwood looks pretty good. I want to start, though, Jay, with Sungjae Im, I think, because he has been at the top of the leaderboard sniffing a win lately. And I'm wondering if Sungjae, one, can get the win here, and two, if he's someone we should be looking for in the Open.
Yeah, this guy gets on heaters, like we were mentioning heaters before, Jack. He is a birdie making machine. I mean, he wound up finishing in the top 6 or 8 last week at the John Deere with 2 triple bogeys on the scorecard, I think on Saturday. So he makes a lot of birdies. There's other ways to bet golf, though, guys. You don't just have to pick winners. You can go get some prop bets. You can get top 20s. There's also some interesting individual matchups that they will pick a guy that most likely you've never heard about, whose form is really trending in the right direction, and pit him up against a guy like, say, Ricky Fowler, who's really well known, whose form is heading in the wrong direction. And 9 times out of 10, people will pick that name that's more familiar with them, and that guy gets his butt kicked, because their form is heading in opposite directions. And these guys, you look on the leaderboards anymore, you guys, and it's like, who are these people? And you're seeing, because Liv poached, the top 15 or 18 players or so, this vacuum is being filled by a lot of really, really good players. I'm really interested in watching Aubert, see if he can close this thing out. What the biggest thing that comes to mind for me, guys, no wind. When you play over there, I remember playing in the Scottish Open, and I was playing at Carnoustie, and it was 100 years ago, but it was a blast. And the wind was blowing 15 to 20 miles an hour, and I went in, and let me back up and tell you the story. So I qualify for the British Open after the Scottish, and I go to St. Andrews, and I go to the starter, who's like the captain, which is this title over there. This guy controls who gets to play. And it is raining sideways, and the wind is blowing about 40 miles an hour. And I introduced myself, and I said, I just qualified, and I'd love to be able to go play. You know, is there any room to go play? And he goes, yep, you can go right out now. I go, nobody's played. He goes, nope, just you dumb Americans. He goes, we Scots don't play golf in this weather. Only you dumb Americans. And I go, what do you Scots do? He goes, we go to the pub. So
I love that.
It's interesting. So I played in the Scottish Open at Carnoustie, and Carnoustie is a beast, you guys. There's so much trouble on every single hole, but the wind was only blowing like 15 or 20 miles an hour, but it was a lot. And it's really my first adventure over into Scottish golf and links style golf. And I remember saying to, you know, man, does the wind always blow like this over here? And they're like, they called it a wee zephyr. And first of all, I'm not exactly sure what you're talking about, but it just always blows. So you get a day like a week like they're having at the Scottish, and you glance at some of the trees, and even though the wind's not blowing, they still grow at like a 30-degree angle because the wind blows so regularly. So the golf course, when it's benign like this, you're not seeing some of the crazy shots and some of the big numbers that happen when you get in those stacked sod bunkers over there, guys. So the bunkers are round, and imagine just a piece of sod that gets stacked on top of each other, and so they can vary the heights of them from year to year. They just add more sod to them, and your ball inevitably rolls into the side of a round bunker, and you can hardly ever play out, towards the hole. So they're getting the Scottish Open and the Renaissance Club is about as tame in difficulty as you can get so far this week.
Yeah, and Nate, we'll get to Nate Mitch here, maybe get a couple picks for Dad so he can turn into a golf degenerate. But Nate, I guess my big question with links golf, like Jay mentioned, is what it takes to be successful at links golf. You have to be long. These courses are huge, but you also have to be an incredibly accurate like ball striker, because if you end up in the bunkers, like Jay said, they're so hard to get out of. It makes it difficult for you to be successful in something like the Scottish Open or the Open. So we see guys who are long and accurate, like Abear at the top. I guess I'm really interested in Rory because he almost wins the U.S. Open or forces a playoff. He's playing well again here at the Scottish Open. He won the Scottish Open last year. Like, this is a tournament he likes. He can certainly release himself from the pack and win. But I guess I'm interested in both Rory's performance at the Scottish the next 2 days, and if this is a situation in which Rory can really take control and win the Open Championship next week after that bad taste in his mouth, the U.S. Open.
Yeah, I mean, so Rory's always going to be the storyline. He's even right now. He's 3 shots back the lead. He's 9 under, 4 shots back the lead. McIntyre just got to 13, but he hasn't teed off yet. So, he's probably going to make up some ground. The problem with Rory, and this is what I've been thinking about when I think about like kind of looking ahead to Troon, do you watch the Scottish Open, is that Rory doesn't necessarily play the game of like what you think about when you think about Irish golf or when you think about Scottish golf. Countryman Shane Lowry hits a really low ball. He's really good in the wind. Rory plays a style of golf that tends to be better on American courses. He hits the ball really high. He hits the ball really long. Neither of those things are necessary to succeed at links golf. You get quite a bit of rollout off the tee. So some of that carry advantage that he has on softer American courses is neutralized because guys can sort of run it down the fairway off the tee. You don't need to be as long on a lot of these courses. They're older. They're just not that long in general. And he hits it so high that it can make it difficult to control in the wind. He just doesn't hit that kind of shot very often. So to think like this is Rory's big chance to win a major, I'm skeptical. Looking at guys that have succeeded at Troon, he doesn't fit the profile of sort of modern winners at Troon. Justin Leonard won there in 97, short, low ball hitter. Todd Hamilton won there, short, low ball hitter. Henrik Stenson won there most recently, again, short and a pretty low ball hitter. So Rory doesn't, like, if you just look at guys that have won recently and guys that have sort of succeeded there, Rory doesn't like look to me to fit the profile, but he's also Rory. So he's also, you know, a transcendent generational talent, who's obviously incredibly motivated and has a very bad taste in his mouth from really giving away US Open. So that's sort of where I'm at with Rory. But yeah, I mean, but I'm excited to see what he does today, because this tournament isn't quite as firm and fast. Like Jay was saying, the wind is fairly benign right now. You know, if it stays like that at Troon, he has a shot. If it rains and, you know, it's fairly calm, you know, then it plays like any other golf course. But if it's really dry and really windy next week at Troon, or if they really try and bake it out, it's probably not his preferred style of golf.
Jack, what's interesting is the list of guys that have won majors after 31 years old. There's a big list of players that never won again after, for whatever reason, that 31, 32 age frame, and, you know, Roy's 35. And it's hard to imagine he's going to have a better chance than what happened at, you know, that at Pinehurst, and we saw that result.
No,
Yeah,
also,
I mean, go ahead, Mitch.
Sorry. No, I was just going to say, when with Rory, he's played so well. I mean, he's been ranked number 1 last year. I mean, he's been right on the cusp and not getting it. You feel like his chances are just, you know, kind of fleeting and going away a little bit. And you're right, after 35, it's tough. It's tough to win here. But I think his game translates. No matter if he's on, he can win anywhere. I know he doesn't. The style of play doesn't match up, you know, totally with Troon. But if he's on and he's locked in, he can win anywhere. And right now, he's such a transcendent player, and we saw his struggle. You're kind of just seeing how he performs right now. You just want him to play well, get his headspace back, so he can put himself back in that top 10 finishes and give himself a chance. Because he's right there. He's playing his best golf the last year and a half. It's just he just trips up every once in a while.
Yeah. It's the mental stuff for him, you know? I mean, the guy wins all the time and he can't win a major, and that's because he thinks about it all the time. I mean, I think it's all he thinks about is the fact that he just hasn't won a major in such a long time. And he wins tournaments constantly. America, over in Europe, it doesn't matter whether his game fits the course or not. He's a transcendent talent. And then he gets to these majors and he's right there at the top. He's at top 5, number 2, and he does something like he did at the U.S. Open and misses that putt. And you could just see how frustrated he was at himself. I've never seen him walk out and not do a press conference. I mean, he's not like a baby, you know. I mean, he's a grown man, and he's always been good to the press, and that was just so devastating for him. And you could just tell, man, that he just wants a major so bad and is having trouble getting it. But yeah, Dad, we're going to get to our picks here now because we got to make you a little bit of money. We'll start with Nate since he's the hot hand. I guess just, keep it simple for Dad. No top 5s, no top 10s.
Just give me your Nate. Just give me your winner.
I like Robert McIntyre.
What?
Robert McIntyre.
McIntyre 6.5 to 1. Got it. Next.
Boom. There you go.
There we go.
I like this segment. This is my favorite segment. Mitch?
I like head-to-head. Brian Harmon, Victor Perez. I don't even know if they're playing right now. It's minus 130
head-to-head
for Harmon.
is just pick the winner.
I don't fall for that. I've only bet head-to-head. That's the only way I win.
I think you're right about that.
Take Brian Harmon over Victor Perez.
I don't know how to bet head-to-head. We only got a minute. I need a winner.
Just click the button.
All right. You're either going to look at Sanjay M or Ludwig Aubert, and you're not going to get great odds on Aubert because he had the lead after 36 holes.
All right, so Ludwig is plus 135. I'm not going to bet that. Sanjay M, the guy that you said is the putter guy, he's plus 650. McIntyre just went to 700. So you're like in who else? Dan, you got one?
Dan doesn't do golf.
I'd probably
Dan.
go M, but I
Yeah.
defer to these guys. They know golf a lot better than I do.
Jack, you got a pick?
Rory.
I like Tommy Fleetwood to finish top 5 plus 240.
That's a good one. That's a good one, guys.
Like
I don't
that.
even, I can't bet that. I'm just all right. I'm just going to go.
We're gonna have to have a
Fleetwood
show
is
where we do
30 to
nothing
1.
but educate John on modern bets.
Yeah,
I would
Fleetwood is
love
30
to.
I just want to bet the winner. Fleetwood
Yeah,
is
I'd love to
30
do
1.
that, but whenever we try, he starts screaming at us. So
I know.
for whatever reason, he's just going to be resistant to it. Listen, guys, thanks for tuning in to the Godzilla One Saturday Pick Show. Glad to get the 6-man screen in here. I love this. A lot of fun today. Going to be a fun Sunday with Scottish Open, Wimbledon, Copa America, the Euro finals as well. We will see you next week at our new start time, 9 to 11 Eastern time. Check us out on social media. Check us out on Getter. You can check us out on Twitter as well, both John and the Godzilla Wins Twitter. Follow us and follow all of your Pittsburgh beat writing here with Mitch Rogers there. Shout out to the Pittsburgh trial lawyers or whatever, personal injury lawyers. Shout out to to their Twitter handle as well. See you guys next week. And up next, golf with Jay Delsing, baby.
Yeah.
Yeah.